I notice things. It's what I do for a living: systems analysis, pattern recognition, anomaly detection. So when Sarah starts wearing expensive perfume to buy groceries on a Tuesday night, I flag it. When she returns an hour later with soap-scrubbed hands and no perfume, I document it. 3 months of lies, carefully catalogued in spreadsheets. GPS tracking, phone records, and video evidence. Sarah thought she was smarter than I, thought I wouldn't notice her Saturday morning gym sessions that weren't at the gym. But I had enough data to destroy her entire world. And when I found her at his house last Sunday morning, I brought a baseball bat and a very clear understanding of consequences. Quick, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and how your day is going. Now, if you've ever suspected someone was lying to you but couldn't prove it, smash that subscribe button, because this story is about using cold, hard data to expose the truth. Hit that like button if you think cheaters deserve exactly what they get. Let's dive into this methodical takedown. My name is Caleb, and I need you to understand something about how my mind works before I tell you what I did to my wife. I'm a systems analyst. I spend my days identifying patterns, recognizing anomalies, and solving problems with data rather than emotion. When something breaks the expected sequence, I flag it. When information doesn't match historical trends, I investigate. I approach problems methodically, without emotion, because feelings corrupt logic. This mindset saved my sanity when my marriage started falling apart. It also gave me the tools to destroy my wife's life with surgical precision. It started on a Tuesday evening in October. Sarah kissed my cheek goodbye and said she was running to the store for milk. Simple enough. Except she was wearing perfume, something floral and expensive that I didn't recognize. Not the vanilla body spray she usually wore, not the light lavender she put on for work. This was deliberate, intentional. I looked up from my laptop with curiosity. New perfume? She paused at the door, her hand on the knob. Just trying something different. Her voice was steady, but she didn't turn around. I filed that detail away. When she returned an hour later with a single gallon of milk, a purchase that should have taken 15 minutes, the scent was gone, scrubbed away. But I could smell soap on her hands when she reached past me for a glass of water. I didn't ask where she'd been. I just started paying attention. The changes came in small increments, like water slowly heating to a boil. She stopped looking at me when we talked. Not obviously, she still nodded, still responded appropriately. But her eyes would focus on my forehead, my shoulder, anywhere but direct contact. I timed it without thinking, the way I time everything. Our conversations used to include 3 to 4 seconds of sustained eye contact. Now it was less than one. Her phone developed a password. She mentioned it casually while scrolling through emails one evening. Sarah typed with her thumb covering the screen, a deliberate shield I'd never seen before. Something about work security requirements. They're really cracking down on data protection. I nodded, thinking to myself that I understood data protection better than most people. I also understood that her law firm wasn't the type to mandate personal device encryption for paralegals. The gym schedule changed next. Tuesday and Thursday evenings became Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings. She'd leave at 8 and return around 11, hair damp, cheeks flushed. Sarah would towel her hair dry with enthusiasm. The early sessions are so much better. Less crowded, better equipment availability. You should try morning workouts, really gets your metabolism going. But I smelled that perfume again. Faint but present, mixing with what should have been sweat but wasn't quite right. Gym sweat has a specific scent profile: salt, exertion, and industrial air freshener. This was something else entirely. I didn't accuse her. I just started documenting. The pillow talk disappeared first. We used to lie in bed after sex and talk about nothing: her day, my projects, weekend plans, random observations. Comfortable silence punctuated by lazy conversation. Now she'd roll away immediately, check her phone, or suddenly remember something she needed to do. Sarah would slip out of bed while I was still catching my breath. I should set the coffee maker for tomorrow. The frequency dropped next. From 3 times a week to twice, then once, then twice a month, with gaps that stretched longer each time. When we did have sex, she was present but distant. Technically engaged, but mentally elsewhere. Her breathing pattern changed on a Thursday night in November: too controlled, too measured, like she was performing a function rather than experiencing it. Her hands moved differently, positioning me rather than pulling me closer. I didn't mention it. I just noted the timestamp and duration. She started taking calls in the other room. Work calls, she explained, pacing in the kitchen while I watched television. But I caught fragments through the wall, laughter that sounded nothing like her professional voice, long pauses that didn't match the rhythm of business conversation. I'd hear her voice float through the wall with an unfamiliar breathiness. And there was something in that sound I didn't recognize. Something private. When she'd return, her cheeks would be pink, and she'd avoid eye contact completely. I'd glance up from the television. Everything okay at work? Sarah would wave dismissively. Fine. Just busy season coming up. But it was December, and her firm didn't have busy seasons the way accounting firms do. Tax law is steady year-round. I started keeping a simple spreadsheet. Not because I was paranoid, but because data doesn't lie. Column A, date. Column B, anomalous behavior. Column C, duration. Column D, additional notes. December 3rd, perfume for grocery run, 47 minutes for milk purchase. December 7th, Saturday gym session, returned with coffee breath despite claiming a workout. December 12th, phone call in kitchen, 23 minutes, laughter audible. December 15th, sex initiated by her for the first time in 6 weeks, felt performative. The pattern emerged slowly, like a photograph developing in chemicals. Each data point was insignificant alone, but together they formed a clear image. Sarah was having an affair. I didn't feel rage when I reached this conclusion. I didn't feel betrayed or heartbroken or any of the emotions I expected. I felt something colder and more focused. I felt like a problem had been identified and now required a solution. She was sitting on the couch next to me on a Thursday night in December, scrolling through her phone while we watched a movie neither of us was really following. The light from the screen illuminated her face, and I studied her profile with the same attention I'd give a system schematic. She was beautiful, I'd always known that. But I was seeing it differently now. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. The small scar on her chin from childhood. The way her mouth curved slightly when she read something that amused her. Someone else was seeing these things, too. Someone else was learning her patterns, her preferences, her responses. Someone else was collecting data about my wife. Sarah stood and stretched. I'm going to bed. I didn't look up from my laptop. I'll be up in a few minutes. She leaned down and kissed the top of my head, a gesture so familiar and routine that it should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt like part of her performance, maintaining appearances while she operated a parallel process in the background. I watched her walk upstairs, noting the slight sway in her hips, the careful way she placed her feet on each step. Everything about her movement suggested someone who was very aware of being observed. After her footsteps faded and I heard the bedroom door close, I opened my laptop and updated the spreadsheet. The entries were getting longer, more detailed, more damning. I didn't feel angry. I felt methodical. I didn't feel hurt. I felt prepared. The opportunity to confirm my suspicions came on a Tuesday evening in January. Sarah announced she was taking a bath, something she did when she was stressed, usually with wine and a book. I heard the water running upstairs, smelled the lavender bath salts she kept under the sink. Her phone sat on the kitchen counter next to her keys and purse. She'd either forgotten to take it with her, or maybe she was finally getting careless. I didn't hesitate. This wasn't about violating her privacy. Privacy had died the moment she started lying about Saturday morning workouts. This was about confirming what I already knew, so I could stop pretending I didn't know it. The phone unlocked to her messages. Recent conversations showed her sister, her mother, and a group chat with college friends. But there was another thread that didn't belong, a contact labeled J with no last name, no photo, just an initial that could be anyone. I scrolled through their message history. The early texts were innocent enough, work references, casual check-ins. But they evolved quickly into something else entirely. Miss you already, from yesterday, at 11:47 a.m. Can't stop thinking about Saturday, from her, Sunday at 9:23 p.m. When can I see you again, from him? This morning at 7:15 a.m. from her. Saturday. The gym day that wasn't really the gym. I scrolled further back, looking for the beginning. The first message was from November 18th, nice meeting you today. Coffee soon? Simple, professional. The kind of message that could mean anything. But by November 25th, last night was incredible. By December 2nd, I can't get enough of you. By December 15th, send me another picture. My hands were steady as I continued scrolling. I wasn't shaking with rage or fighting back tears. I was collecting evidence with the same calm precision I'd used to troubleshoot a server crash. Then I found the video. It was buried in their message thread from 3 days ago, sent from her to him with the caption "Wish you were here instead." I tapped the play button. The footage was grainy, obviously shot with her phone camera in low light, but the location was unmistakable. Our bedroom. Our bed. Our sheets. Sarah was alone in the frame, positioned in a way that suggested she was performing for the camera. For him. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was her voice, the sounds she made, the things she said. They were familiar because they were the same sounds she made with me, except intensified, more enthusiastic, more genuine. Her voice whispered to the camera with pure want. God, I wish you were here. There was something in her voice I hadn't heard in months, pure want, unguarded desire. She was performing for him in our bed, using responses she used to reserve for me. I watched the entire 37 seconds. Then I watched it again, this time studying the technical details. The timestamp showed it was recorded last Saturday evening while I was at my brother's house helping him set up his new computer. The angle suggested she'd propped the phone against something on my side of the bed, my nightstand, probably on top of the book I was currently reading. She smiled at the camera at the end, a secret, satisfied smile I'd never seen directed at me. I scrolled through the rest of their conversation, looking for more evidence. There were pictures, nothing explicit, but intimate in ways that felt more violating than nudity. Sarah was laughing in a coffee shop I didn't recognize. Sarah was in workout clothes that were too nice for the gym. Sarah was wearing the perfume I'd first noticed in October. Each image was time-stamped and geotagged. I made note of the locations, the dates, and the progression of their relationship. Not because I was planning to confront her with this evidence immediately, but because I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. Then I found a message from him that made my vision narrow. Your husband seems like a nice guy. Too bad he doesn't appreciate what he has. Her response, he doesn't see me the way you do. And then, sometimes I think he wouldn't even notice if I just disappeared. This cut deeper than the video, deeper than the photos. Not because it hurt, I was past feeling hurt, but because it revealed how fundamentally she'd misunderstood our entire relationship. I noticed everything. I'd been noticing her absence for months. I scrolled to the bottom of their conversation to find today's messages. Can't wait for Saturday from him at 2:15 p.m. I have something special planned, from her at 2:47 p.m. Should I bring protection, from him at 3:03 p.m.? Already taken care of, from her at 3:05 p.m. I checked the timestamp on that last message. She'd sent it while I was in a meeting with my team lead, discussing optimization strategies for the quarterly server migration. While I was thinking about improving system efficiency, she was planning another Saturday morning that had nothing to do with the gym. The bath water was still running upstairs. I heard Sarah moving around, probably lighting the candles she kept on the bathroom windowsill. She'd be in there for at least 30 minutes, maybe longer if she decided to wash her hair. I forwarded the video to my personal email account along with several of the more incriminating text exchanges. Not because I was planning to use them immediately, but because I believed in backup systems, data preservation, and ensuring important information didn't get accidentally deleted. Then I deleted the forwarded messages from her sent folder and cleared the recent activity log. I was careful to remove any trace that someone else had accessed these files. When I was finished, her phone looked exactly the way it had when I'd picked it up. I set it back on the counter in the exact position where she'd left it, screen down, slightly overlapping the edge of her car keys. Then I went to my office and opened my laptop. I updated the spreadsheet with today's findings, creating new columns for message frequency, video evidence, and location data. The patterns were even clearer now. Saturday mornings weren't the only times they met. There were lunch dates, evening coffee runs, and what appeared to be a regular Thursday afternoon schedule that corresponded with when I worked late. She'd been living a double life for 3 months. Not just having an affair, but conducting an entire relationship with someone who knew about me, knew about our marriage, and didn't care that he was helping her destroy it. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark office, listening to the sounds of her bath routine above me. Water draining from the tub, her footsteps moving from bathroom to bedroom, the soft thud of drawers opening and closing as she got ready for bed. In a few minutes, she'd come downstairs and ask if I was ready to watch television. She'd curl up next to me on the couch, maybe put her head on my shoulder, and we'd go through the motions of being a married couple while she texted with Jay and planned Saturday's next deception. But now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. I had documentation, evidence, and a clear understanding of how long this had been going on. I had enough information to make informed decisions about what came next. I didn't feel betrayed anymore. I felt equipped. And tomorrow, I was going to start planning my response. The lie came on a Wednesday evening in late January. Sarah set down her coffee cup and adopted the expression she used when she was about to deliver carefully rehearsed information. She spoke without quite meeting my eyes. My sister called today. She's got that flu that's been going around. Asked if I could drive up and help her out this weekend. I looked up from the technical manual I was reading. Which sister? Jenny. She's really struggling, and you know how she gets when she's sick. I knew Jenny got demanding and dramatic when she had a head cold, but I also knew she lived in Columbus, which was 3 hours north. I also knew Sarah's phone hadn't rung today while we were both home, and the last text from Jenny in her phone was 2 weeks ago about their mother's birthday plans. When would you leave? I asked. Friday after work. Probably stay through Sunday morning. Very short notice for someone who'd been sick long enough to need weekend care. Want me to come with you? I could help out. She shook her head quickly. No, that's okay. She's pretty contagious right now. No point in both of us getting sick. I nodded and returned to my manual. Let me know if she needs anything. Sarah's voice softened with what sounded like genuine affection. You're sweet. Then, unnecessarily, I'll probably be pretty busy taking care of her, so I might not text much. Another detail she didn't need to provide unless she was establishing an alibi. After she went to bed, I retrieved the small GPS tracker I'd ordered online the previous week. It was designed for elderly parents who wander about the size of a quarter, with a battery life of 36 hours. I'd been carrying it in my pocket, waiting for the right opportunity. I slipped outside and popped the trunk of her Honda. The spare tire well was perfect, hidden but accessible to GPS signals. I nestled the tracker between the tire and the plastic housing, somewhere she'd never notice, even if she had to change a flat tire. The device synced to an app on my phone. I tested it by walking to the end of our driveway. The blue dot moved accordingly. Technology is reliable in ways people aren't. Thursday evening, Sarah packed an overnight bag with the kind of thoughtful preparation you'd use for a romantic weekend, not nursing a sick sister. I watched her fold lingerie I hadn't seen in months, pack the expensive perfume she'd been using for grocery runs, and include a dress that was entirely inappropriate for someone planning to clean up after an invalid. I observed from the bedroom doorway. You're packing pretty nice clothes for a sick room. She didn't look up from her suitcase. I might stop by Mom's on the way back. You know how she is about appearances. Another explanation that answered a question I didn't ask. Friday afternoon, I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed with a movement notification. Sarah's car was on Highway 71, heading north toward Columbus, just like she'd said. For a moment, I almost felt guilty for tracking her. Maybe she really was visiting Jenny. But 20 minutes later, the blue dot exited the highway at Route 23, heading east instead of continuing north. She wasn't going to Columbus. She was going to a small suburb called Worthington, about 45 minutes from our house. I excused myself from the meeting and watched the tracker in real time from my office. The dot moved through residential streets before stopping at 847 Maple Drive. I switched to satellite view on my laptop. It was a modest 2-story house with a detached garage and mature trees that provided privacy from the neighbors. The dot stayed there for 6 hours. I left work at my normal time, drove home, and ate dinner alone while monitoring her location. Still at 847 Maple Drive. Still there when I went to bed at 11 p.m. Saturday morning, I checked the app as soon as I woke up. The dot hadn't moved. She'd spent the night there. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, studying the satellite image of the house where my wife was currently sleeping with someone else. Property records showed it belonged to James Mitchell, age 38, divorced, regional sales manager for a medical device company. James. J. I zoomed in on the house details. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, built in 1987. Assessed value of $178,000. Recently renovated based on the fresh roof and new siding visible in the satellite imagery. A starter home for someone building a new life after a divorce. The blue dot started moving at 9:17 a.m. I tracked it to a Starbucks 3 blocks away, where it stayed for 47 minutes, then to a Target, where it spent an hour and 15 minutes. Then back to 847, Maple Drive. They weren't hiding. They were having a normal weekend together, running errands like a couple. The casualness of it bothered me more than the secrecy. She wasn't just having an affair, she was test driving a replacement life. I spent Saturday doing normal weekend activities while monitoring her location. I mowed the lawn, did laundry, grocery shopped, and picked up my dry cleaning. Domestic tasks that felt surreal when performed while tracking your wife's adultery in real time. The blue dot didn't move from Maple Drive for the rest of Saturday. Sunday morning at 8:43 a.m., she finally started heading home. I watched her progress on the highway, calculating her arrival time based on traffic patterns. She'd be here in 55 minutes, which gave me time to finish the preparations I'd started yesterday. I retrieved the baseball bat from the garage. It was aluminum, regulation size, left over from my college intramural league. I hadn't touched it in 15 years, but the weight felt familiar in my hands. Balanced. Purposeful. I wasn't planning to use it on Sarah. She wasn't the one I was angry with. She was just someone who'd made a choice and would have to live with the consequences. But James Mitchell had made a choice, too. He'd chosen to pursue a married woman, to help her lie to her husband, to be intimate with her while knowing exactly whose marriage he was helping destroy. That choice required a response. I drove to Worthington, following the same route the GPS tracker had taken yesterday. 847, Maple Drive looked exactly like the satellite images, modest, well-maintained, the kind of place where a divorced man might rebuild his life until someone else's wife decided to blow it up. Sarah's Honda was in the driveway next to a red Toyota Camry. The curtains were drawn, but there was movement behind them. Shadows passing by the windows. I parked 2 houses down and checked the time. 10:23 a.m. They were probably having breakfast, maybe planning their last few hours together before she had to return to her performance as my wife. I didn't feel nervous as I walked up the driveway. I didn't feel rage or betrayal or any of the emotions I'd expected. I felt the same calm focus I brought to solving technical problems. A system had been compromised, and now it needed to be restored. I didn't knock. The front door was unlocked. Either they were incredibly careless, or they were so comfortable in their deception that basic security didn't occur to them. I turned the handle and stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind me. The house smelled like coffee and bacon and the lingerie Sarah had packed Thursday night. Domestic bliss with a side of betrayal. I heard voices from the kitchen, Sarah laughing at something, the low rumble of a man's response. They were around the corner, probably sitting at a breakfast table, probably touching each other in ways that used to be reserved for me. I adjusted my grip on the bat and walked toward the sound. Sarah saw me first. She was wearing a robe I didn't recognize, sitting cross-legged in a kitchen chair with a coffee mug halfway to her lips. The expression on her face shifted from contentment to confusion to horror in the span of 2 seconds. Her voice was small, uncertain. "Caleb. What are you? How did you?" James Mitchell was exactly what I'd expected, mid-30s, athletic build, the kind of aggressive handsomeness that comes from good genetics and regular gym attendance. He was wearing boxer shorts and a t-shirt, comfortable in his own space, completely unprepared for consequences. He stood up slowly, his eyes focused on the bat in my hands. James raised his palms in what he probably thought was a calming gesture. "Hey man, let's just talk about this. I know this looks bad, but..." I kept my voice quieter than I'd expected, controlled, almost conversational. "Sit down." He didn't sit. Instead, He took a step toward me, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was bigger than me, probably stronger, and he thought he could de-escalate this situation through physical presence and reasonable conversation. He was wrong about that. The first swing caught him in the ribs just below his left arm. The sound was sharp and wet bone meeting aluminum with enough force to crack something important. He doubled over immediately, gasping, and I heard Sarah scream behind him. "Sit down," I repeated. This time, he complied, collapsing into the chair he'd just vacated. His face was pale, and sweat was beading on his forehead. He was holding his side like he was trying to keep his ribs from separating. Sarah's voice sounded like it was coming from very far away. "Please. Please don't." He didn't know. I kept my eyes on James. He didn't know what? That you married? That you have a husband who pays the mortgage on the house you've been lying about leaving? James opened his mouth to say something, but I wasn't interested in his explanation. The second swing was more precise, aimed at his right knee with the mechanical efficiency of a golf drive. The sound it made was different from the ribs, more of a wet crack, followed by his scream. He toppled sideways off the chair, hitting the kitchen floor hard. Both hands went to his knee, and I could see bone fragments through the torn skin. He wasn't getting up anytime soon. Sarah was sobbing now, pressed against the refrigerator like she was trying to melt into it. "Stop. Please stop. I'll do anything." I looked down at her with complete detachment. "You've already done everything. This isn't about you." I looked down at James, who was curled in a fetal position, making sounds that weren't quite words. Blood was pooling under his leg, spreading across the kitchen tiles in a pattern that was almost artistic. I spoke loud enough for both of them to hear. "Here's what's going to happen. Sarah is going to pack her things and come home with me. You're going to call 911 and get your leg fixed. And then you're going to forget her phone number." James nodded frantically, still clutching his destroyed knee. "If you contact her again, phone, email, showing up at her work, anything, I'll come back and finish what I started. Do you understand me?" Another nod. Tears were mixing with the sweat on his face now. "Good." I turned to Sarah, who was still pressed against the refrigerator. Her robe had come partly open, and I could see marks on her neck and chest, evidence of a passion she hadn't shown me in months. "Get dressed. We're leaving." She stumbled toward what I assumed was the bedroom, stepping carefully around James's blood. I heard drawers opening, the rustle of clothes being pulled on hastily. James was trying to say something, but the words were coming out as gasps and whimpers. I leaned down closer to hear him. His voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry. I didn't." She said. I crouched beside him. She said what? That I wouldn't care? That I wouldn't find out? That I'm the kind of man who just accepts being humiliated? He didn't answer, probably because his leg was broken in multiple places and he was going into shock. I stood up and looked down at him. "You were wrong about that." Sarah reappeared wearing jeans and a sweater, her overnight bag clutched in her hands. Her face was streaked with tears and mascara, and she looked nothing like the woman who'd been laughing over breakfast 10 minutes ago. "Let's go," I said. She followed me to the front door without speaking. Behind us, James had managed to reach his phone and was dialing 911 with shaking fingers. In the driveway, Sarah stopped next to her Honda. Her hands were trembling as she looked at her car keys. "I can't, my hands are shaking. I can't drive." I took her keys and tossed them into the passenger seat of my car. "Leave it. You can get it later. Or not. I don't really care." The drive home took 25 minutes. Sarah cried for the first 10, then sat in silence for the rest. I didn't attempt a conversation. There was nothing left to discuss. The data had been collected, the problem identified, and the initial response implemented. When we pulled into our driveway, she finally spoke. Her voice was barely audible. "Are you going to? What happens now?" I turned off the engine and looked at her. Really looked at her, probably for the last time, as my wife rather than as evidence in a divorce proceeding. "Now you pack your things and find somewhere else to live." She turned to face me with desperate hope in her eyes. "But I thought, if I came home, I thought we could." "You thought wrong." I got out of the car and walked toward the house, leaving her sitting in the passenger seat. I had work to do, lawyers to call, papers to file, and new life to begin. Behind me, I heard her car door open, her footsteps on the driveway, but I didn't look back. I was done collecting data about Sarah's behavior. I already knew everything I needed to know. I filed for divorce on Monday morning at 8:15 a.m., exactly 37 minutes after the courthouse opened. The lawyer I'd chosen specialized in high-conflict cases involving adultery, which made the consultation efficient. I provided the forwarded text messages, the GPS tracking data, and a written timeline of Sarah's deception. He scrolled through the evidence on his tablet with obvious admiration. "This is comprehensive. Almost clinical in its thoroughness." I sat across from him with my hands folded. "I believe in documentation. It shows. With this level of proof, she's not going to have much leverage in negotiations." I nodded. I wasn't interested in leverage or negotiations. I was interested in efficiency and finality. While he prepared the initial paperwork, I handled the financial logistics. I froze our joint checking account, removed Sarah's name from the savings account, and transferred my $401k into an individual account. By noon, she had access to exactly what she'd brought into the marriage 5 years ago, her personal checking account and whatever equity she could claim in the house she wouldn't be living in anymore. The rest of the week played out exactly as I'd calculated. Sarah signed the papers without contesting them. She packed her belongings while I was at work, coordinating through lawyers to avoid any face-to-face confrontation. She left her keys on the kitchen counter next to a letter I didn't bother reading. James Mitchell never pressed charges. As I'd predicted, explaining why I was at his house on a Sunday morning would have required depositions and testimony about his relationship with my wife. It would have required his employer, his neighbors, and his ex-wife to know exactly what kind of man he was. He had surgery on his knee, filed an insurance claim for a home invasion, and pretended none of it ever happened. Just like Sarah pretended, our marriage never happened. It's been 6 months since the divorce was finalized. The house is quiet now, the first kind of honest peace I've felt in years. I've rearranged the furniture, painted the living room a color she used to hate. The silence isn't empty, it's honest. Some people say I went too far, that a baseball bat and calculated revenge must come from hatred. But they're wrong. I didn't do it out of hatred. I did it because I refused to carry her deception any longer. I didn't want revenge, I wanted my life back. And I took it quietly, completely, without asking anyone's permission. What I have now is better than what I lost, because what I have now is real. I come home to a house that belongs entirely to me. I sleep in a bed where no one has ever performed for someone else's camera. I make decisions based on my own preferences rather than managing someone else's reactions. Sarah wanted freedom from the constraints of marriage. Divorce gave her exactly that. And in the process, I got exactly what I needed: the absence of lies, the presence of truth. So we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to hear your perspective on whether I went too far or not far enough. If this methodical takedown kept you hooked, smash that like button. And if you're new here, hit subscribe for more stories where cold logic meets hot revenge. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.